It was 11:51 one late summer's night, specifically the 10th of the 12th, 2018, and Miles sat alone in his room and decided to make a recording of things that he really liked this year. It's not quite the end of the year yet, but I mean, it doesn't matter that much. So I'll be going through a couple of categories. Firstly, my favorite games of the year, then just quickly covering what my favorite game ever is, because that sometimes shifts around. What games I'm looking forward to. Other good games I've played this year. Play a lot of games. I think it comes with loving the medium. And then I'll move into stuff that I feel like I'm maybe not as good at talking about, like music and TV and sound, music in general, and sort of audio-related stuff. I feel like I at least somewhat know what I'm talking about with games, but in the music department, I'm not going to pretend to know what I'm doing. Anyways, start with my favorite games of the year. So the first one is Downwell. That is I played it on my phone, mostly. It's an arcadey sort of a game where you play as a little guy, you've got guns on your feet, and you hurtle down a well, sort of hopping off enemies and shooting. You can shoot your bullets downwards to slow your descent or shoot enemies below you. It's simple in concept, but you can get different weapons and buy things from stores, and you get more points for comboing and bouncing off enemies consecutively as you go down without touching the ground. And just getting a rhythm going of hitting enemy to enemy to enemy to enemy, it feels really, really good. Being able to bounce and sort of ricochet off and get everywhere you need to, and you get progressively faster and faster and faster, and you have to react faster, and it feels really cool to do. The controls are also really simple, left and right and a button. The button doubles as shooting if you're in the air and jumping if you're on the ground, and the hitting the ground reloads your guns. So the game has a really good, simple design where pretty much everything does multiple functions. That's been covered in other videos before, but it's a really good arcade game. It's one I put a lot of time into and consistently enjoyed my time with. It's not. I would come back to it. I think it's really good on phones because you don't have to sit down and okay, it's time to play Downwell. You can be on a bus and go, oh yeah, I'll have a couple of runs of Downwell and die after the first area, but you get better and better over time, and I don't know, I think phones are a really good place for arcade games because you can pull them out whenever, have a couple of shots, die, and then get better over time instead of having to sit down, because sit-down games is something I want to be able to put more time into, or maybe not have to focus on quite as hard because I'm playing it for a longer period of time, if that makes any sense. I'm going to stop rambling about phones. The second game I really liked this year was Yokai Watch 2, specifically the, what's it called? Psychic Spectres Edition, which was kind of the Pokemon Yellow to the Flashy Souls and Bony Spirits, which were red and green. That's good. I like it more than Pokemon. I think the reason I like Yokai Watch more is, well, a couple of things. I think immediately I went into it knowing a lot less about it than I do about Pokemon, so it was always interesting to discover new creatures. I also like the creatures in Yokai Watch more. I mean, I understand they're based off Japanese mythology and yokai, but I really like how they're a little more out there and a little more creative and silly than Pokemon. You can get an old man or an old woman, or something thereabouts, or a hat with legs. And it seems like the designers at Level 5 had a really good time making fun designs based off folklore. I also think the setting is more interesting than Pokemon. Pokemon's sort of catching animals, whereas Yokai Watch is actually a regular day-to-day setting where you can just find supernatural stuff hidden in the corners of a suburban environment, and that's very much my cup of tea. I like sort of cryptid myths and that sort of thing, so that really appealed to me. The fact that there's a bunch of side and extra post-game content, you can ride a ghost train to a the yokai spirit world. That's really cool. I felt a lot like Spirited Away because it's a big bathhouse, and I love Spirited Away a lot. Yokai Watch 2, the biggest complaint leveled against it is usually the combat system, and I can see where people are coming from. I like it enough. It has just enough depth in placing your characters. If you haven't played Yokai Watch, you have a sort of 6-character wheel, and 3 of your yokai, and you put yokai on each spoke of the wheel, so there's like 6. And you can have 3 on field at once, and you spin it around. And so, there's enough strategy in arranging them in the right way, like, where do you want to put the dedicated healer? That means if you want the healer on field at all times, you'll have to sacrifice 1 slot, and there'll be 1 person who can't be reached by the healer. So stuff like that. It's the actual yokai attack themselves, and you can power up their moves by doing little mini games in the bottom screen. It's not like a Pokemon battle system, and I don't think it should be compared as such. It's less an RPG battle system, I'd say, and more sort of a real-time one about getting good positioning on your guys. I like it. It's not super... it doesn't require a huge amount of thought, but again, I don't know. I don't mind that a whole lot. I enjoy just sort of hanging out in the world. One thing I do like about Yokai Watch is the sound design is surprisingly good, so turning off the music is actually quite nice. Just wandering around a town at night and finding weird things to get with your, like, make friends with. I also like that you're not forcefully catching monsters. You're, like, giving them food they like to make friends with them. It's a little tedious that you can't get the ones you want all the time, but again, it doesn't matter that much. If you're relaxed about it, it's a game you can have a lot of fun with. So Yokai Watch 2, it's good. I like that game a whole lot. Third is Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, which this is the final one. I've beaten a couple of times now, and I like a lot. I feel like it got a sort of poorly labeled as a streamer rage game. And I mean, I guess that's what it became. I don't see it that way. The game is pretty clear in that it's a meditation on failure and sort of the nature of failure. And it's about, you've probably seen it, you climb up a mountain as a man in a pot with a hammer, and you control the hammer with the mouse, and you have to sort of haul your way up. It's made to make, and if you fall pretty much right back down to the bottom. So, but yeah, it's a lot of streamers and sort of YouTube Let's Player types went on it and got very, very mad at falling, and also got mad that the game would play little sort of quips or audio recordings of quips or like music when you got to the bottom. Or like the developer saying, because he has a constant voiceover going, oh, it's okay, yeah, get back up, you'll do it better. And people thought that was kind of snarky, but I actually thought it was quite genuine. I felt like it really was sort of a pat on the back, like, you've got this, you'll get there eventually. If it's too much for you right now, you can switch it off. And it took me quite a long time to get around to beating it, but the ending's nice, and the reward at the top of the mountain is really cool. I liked it a lot. I can beat it much more consistently now. It is way easier the second time. That's a true thing. But yeah, Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy is a good game with interesting controls. Actually, I should cover that. I really like how the game controls. I think I've heard some people say it feels imprecise, but it feels just the right amount of imprecise. Your character doesn't quite ever do exactly what you want, but they do it enough that you feel in control whilst also not feeling like you are exactly the character, which is something I think is really good and hard to pull off. So, all of those games, if they sound like they interest you at all, you should really give them a shot. They're all really good quality games. So, my favorite game ever, it's still Quadrilateral Cowboy. I don't feel like I can articulate my thoughts on it much. I really like pretty much everything about it. I love how much detail there is. I love how tactile everything is. Like, things fold out of each other and you click through labels. And I love the puzzles, and I like being able to pick up anything and smash a window with it. I like that you can solve puzzles in creative ways once you've beaten them the right way. You can beat them the wrong way but still get the right result. I like the world building. I like all the cinematic elements it uses to tell its story. I like Quadrilateral Cowboy a lot. In fact, I'd say I'd go so far as to say I love it. Quadrilateral Cowboy is a really, really good video game. It's my favorite one ever. Okay, now here's the games to look forward to section. I feel like I've left some off here, but first one is Knuckle Sandwich. This is the only game I've ever backed on Kickstarter. I played it at PAX last year, and I thought it was really funny, and it still is. The jokes lose a bit of their impact the second time around, but there's a demo online, so you should play that. It's a sort of earthboundy RPG about you play as a guy who moves into a new town and gets a job at a rundown burger joint, and you get in a knife fight with a guy in a back alley, accidentally kill them, and then your boss fries them up, and you discover that the bodies of deadbeats are delicious. They're super tasty. And now your character must go kill all the deadbeats in town and turn them into knuckle sandwiches to sell to the masses, which is just an excellent pun. And you eventually get wrapped up in a cult and a ludicrous gang, I think is how it describes it. The writing's really good. The music is done by a bunch of different artists and is catchy and fun and fitting for the situations. There's a lot of mini games, like it forgoes where a traditional RPG would have puzzles and instead puts in WarioWare style mini games, which I think is a really good change of pace from traditionally kind of slightly slow RPG stuff. I don't play many RPGs. I want to make one because I think I could do it better. Not really because I think I have any experience or reason to think that. I don't know. I think RPGs are an interesting enough format, and I think I have ideas about them I'd like to do. But Knuckle Sandwich is good if you're looking for a game to make you laugh. It's funny. I laugh quite a bit out loud, actually, which I do with very few games. So, next one on the list is Wattam. This is a game by Kaida Takahashi, who made Katamari and Nobi Nobi Boy, and it was called World. I haven't been able to play that. And Alphabet. He makes games that are very intrinsically fun. Like, just the act of playing them is fun. So there's absolutely no way this game will be bad. Katamari is incredible. It's a game about rolling a ball around and sticking stuff to it. It's bizarre and fantastic. But Wattam is a game about the mayor, who is a cube with a bomb under his hat. And you can make objects come alive by holding their hands and then exploding them with the bomb, and then you can play as those objects and sort of interact with other ones. And it's abstract, but you can hold things hands and run around. It's got co-op. It seems to be a sandbox geared towards making friends, which is silly and cute, and I don't know. I'll definitely play it with a sibling when it comes out, because it's very much based on a game for kids to be able to play, and I think it looks like it's fulfilling that really well. The art's colourful and nice. I don't know, it just looks like a really pleasant game. The next one is Burrito Galaxy 65, which I'd say, too excited for, for what it is. It's a game in which your character, Guok, crashes her spaceship, the SS Bibimbap, into a hotel and smashes a single window. Glass is very expensive in the future, however, and now you owe the hotel $1 billion in debt and have to pay it off by doing part-time jobs around the hotel. And it turns out, I think each room in the hotel is its own pocket universe. It's a cool game. You run around, you slap things, and you earn money and do quests for people. It looks exceptionally polished. The music's good. The people making it are generally good-natured and talented. I'm excited to play it because I want a game where I can slide around, slap things, and talk to funny characters, mostly. There's not much there's no sort of ulterior motives or big hook, I can say. I love every screenshot. I can't see anything wrong with it, or in any way, shape, or form I have any doubts about it, really.
except for maybe how it'll execute a climax when it's a game mostly about earning money. But I mean, I'm sure they'll find a way. I'm very excited for Burrito Galaxy 65. If you want more information about it, I made a wiki. It's like 60 something pages now. I keep adding to it every time new information comes out, and I'm pretty, I think, on the ball with information. So if you want to get more info, you should look at that. Next game is Frog Hotel, and I haven't looked at this for a while, which is irresponsible of me considering I'm recording a video or a thing about it right now. But Frog Hotel looks cool. It's a point and click adventure set with I think every time you play it randomly puts the scenes together so it's slightly to entirely different each time, which is really interesting because I've never heard of that being done with a point and click adventure before. And the art looks lovely and strange. It's got a lot of playing with the presentation where there's tiles and comic sort of panels and things flipping around. It was a pretty obscure project on Kickstarter, but it did meet its goal even though I didn't back it. So I'm very happy about that because I'd really like to play it. It looks interesting and different and novel. I don't play many point and clicks, but I think the art and setting and sort of sense of mystery and wonder it has is enough to carry it. Next one's Omori. This is an RPG that may or may not ever come out because it's been in development for the longest time. I don't know much about the plot of this, but the trailers are really good. I know that's a shallow reason to like something, but the music's very nice and the art looks good. So I'll play it probably when it comes out if I have money to buy it. It's a game about a boy called Omori, I think, who lives in a white room and then can leave to a sort of imagination realm where they hang out with their friends, and then there's also some scary monsters and some sort of threat of a clock ticking down till the end of the world, and just, it looks really cool. I'm a sucker for clocks ticking down to the end of the world. That's another plot thing I really like. I'm not doing a very good job of justifying my opinions on things. I think you'll just have to take my word for it. It is late and I'm tired, so I'm not the most emotive. But all of these games look really exciting for me to play. Knuckle Sandwich is exciting because of humor and polish. The thing I think about all these games is they look polished, which is something I really value in games. Not necessarily ones I'm playing, but ones to look at. If I'm going to look at a game, I'm going to be like, oh, well, from a screenshot I can tell they've put a lot of work into pretty much every facet. So Knuckle Sandwiches looks very polished. Wadham looks very polished. It's coming from somebody with a lot of experience. Burrito Galaxy, Frog Hotel, and Mori, they all look polished and nice, and they bring different things to the table, but I think they'll all bring them well, which is important. And finally, on my list of games to look forward to is Genesis Noir, which is surprisingly another point and click, which is interesting because I've never really had much of an interest in the genre, but this one looks like it's doing something different as well. Mainly, it's stylistically fucking bizarre. Genesis Noir is a game set before the Big Bang, where you are in love with a goddess of mass, who's like a sultry jazz singer, and she's being shot with a bullet that represents the expanding universe. Your character is frozen that moment in time and must travel into the expanding universe to destroy it from within somehow. The art is beautiful, and it seems like you load your save file by choosing a different iteration of your past and future selves from a list. I can't describe it because the trailers don't show enough. Maybe it's all gameplay? I can't tell. I can't tell where cinematic starts and gameplay ends, and how... Does it have systems? I don't know. It seems kind of all over the place, and it could turn out really good or really bad with nice visuals. But I'll play it regardless because I want to see how it turns out. And so, okay, that concludes my games to look forward to for the year. This is just... I'm going to go through these even quicker than I did the last lot. These are other good games. These are just games I played this year that I really liked. This section is titled Other Good Games. So the first one is Dujana. Dujana is a RPG where you it's all made out of clay and found objects, which is the first and most striking thing about looking at it, I think. And it's an RPG about death, mostly. Sort of accepting death. It's interesting from a visual standpoint. The music is absolutely fantastic. I played it really early this year, so I don't remember it super well. Like, I played it... Actually, yeah, I played it December last year? Or no, I played it January this year. So I didn't put it on the last list really in official sense because I didn't play it that year. Which was dumb of me, because Dujana is excellent. There's not a lot more I can say about it. If a RPG about clay and death in a sort of fictional Arabic country with a military presence sounds interesting at all to you, pick it up. It's decently cheap on Steam, I think, and the creator's working on a new game, which looks great. Second one is The Tour. It's a short little walking sim with narration. It's about a lot of things. I think its game page on itch.io will probably do the talking for you. I think I'm going to end up linking everything in the description, so if you've listened this far, The Tour will be down there, and if you want to take a look at it, do. It's free, it's pretty short, it won't take up that much of your time. If narrated walking sims are something you like, and you like games that feel very much like they came from a place of an emotional core, like there's something somebody needed to make, then I recommend it. The Tour's really good. It's not super polished, the edges are rough, definitely, but there's a heart there. And it's a heart that it bears on its sleeve immediately. It's great. It's a great little game. Yume Nikki is old as shit, and it's still buck wild and great. It's a RPG Maker game about exploring somebody's dreams, and you just get to kind of wander around in there and see weird stuff. It's great. It takes a while to get into, because until you start finding consistent ways to find interesting things, because a lot of it's big black voids with just a couple of things scattered in it. But the imagery in this game is still bizarre. Like, nothing's really come close to replicating it. And the art there is, the more traditional art, it's actually really nice. I've never heard people talk about it, but the sprite work in this game is super good. It's really appealing. The character sprites in your bedroom and like the balcony, it all looks beautiful. Like really high quality. So, I don't know, play Yume Nikki. That's also free on Steam. If it sounds at all interesting to you, a game about exploring bizarre dream spaces and getting a variety of, like, you can get a bike and ride around on it and stuff. Next is the Zeum Museum. This is a virtual art gallery. It's got a bunch of displays by a bunch of artists. There's like 3D models and installations and things, and it was followed up with the Zeum Garden, which I don't think was as good. The Zeum Museum is really nice, it's relaxing, and it's got some cool artworks in it. So if you are interested at all in that sort of thing, play it. It's good. I really enjoyed it. Next is The Adventure Pals. It's a platformer based off a game that was a Flash game that I played a lot as a kid. But they improved it in basically every way. Its controls are so tight. It has the best zip lines I've ever used in a video game. They feel so good to zip around on. And it doesn't outstay its welcome too. Pretty much as soon as you're starting to get tired of it, it's done. And I can't say that about every game, and I mean that. You're starting to get tired of it. It's like, okay, I understand everything you've got to show me. When's this going to end? And then it does, immediately. It's fun, it's silly, its collectathon elements are just challenging enough that they make you go out of your way a little, but not too challenging that you have to scout every level. More like a keep an eye out and you'll find some good stuff. There's enough collectibles to find
interesting things, and you get power-ups, and there's some references to other indie games, so that's nice. It's a fantastic platformer that flew way too under the radar for how good it is. So if you want a platformer and you've played through the big ones this year, like Celeste, which I don't have on my list because I feel like it got enough publicity, the Adventure Pals is really good. The next one I do have to specify I was given a copy of in advance, mainly for just having discussion with the developer over Twitter, but I was given a copy of Legendary Gary in advance, as well as my name being in the credits. So I think, due to how YouTube works, if I end up uploading it there, I have to say that, so I'm just making sure. It's not sponsored content or anything. Legendary Gary is a game about a guy who lives in the basement of his mum's house playing a video game that he found on a Steam key addressed to him in a strange sort of golden box. And as he plays, his real life and the video game slowly begin to intertwine. They both know parts of each other and are mirroring each other in strange ways. And it's good. It has a really good mystery hook, but it's also about somebody growing up or trying to sort of just manage their life in a situation that isn't fantastic for them. They're not in the best place in their life, and they're just getting through that. It's not super polished, but it makes up for it in heart, and you can tell a lot of work and passion was put into it, especially based on how good the combat system is. It's excellent. I'm just going to readjust the mic. That probably sounds awful. How good the combat system is. It's fantastic. It's grid-based, and you decide on your turns, but everybody, all the enemy and you all do your turns on the same turns, so you like plan out your movements and you all move at the same time, so you have to sort of hope that you'll hit enemies. It's great. It's fantastic. And you can play mind games with them and shift around. You can like bait enemies into their own attacks. It's great. It's really fun. My throat's getting really raw from recording this long. Next one is Duck Game. In Duck Game, you play as a duck. You can put on a variety of hats and shoot your friends who are other ducks with a variety of guns. If you want to do that with friends, it's very dumb. Don't expect anyone to take it seriously. Just do the dumbest shit you can think of. Duck Game is an excellent game for that. Duck Game. Next is Wappo. Wappo is a Metroidvania. But the thing I like most about Wappo is it has a variety of areas which are very populated. And the fact is, you can sort of feel like they're real places. Like, there's a big city underground in one bit, and people will jump on and off the trams, and you can ride the trams around the whole city, and they go up and down on floors, and it feels bustling and active. Wappo also, I feel like, flew under the radar, which is disappointing considering that the game is extraordinarily polished, like Nintendo levels of polish. It has fun bosses, a lot of interesting bits of gameplay, and like if you're interested in how a Metroidvania can be done a little differently, it plays a little bit like Kirby. No, not really like Kirby. It's I don't really know how to describe it, but it does feel sort of like, imagine if Nintendo made a sort of SNES kids Metroidvania and then kept on making those for years. This would be the newest one. Wappo's really good. That's spelled WUPPO, if this is just a audio thing, like I might end up doing it. Next one is Florence. Florence is good. It is a app that I won't spoil much of, and I think it's on PC as well, and like everything, about a relationship between two people. The music is lovely. The art is nice. It's mainly comprised of small mini games, and it made me feel a lot of feelings in my body. Florence made me feel both sad and extraordinarily happy, and for what it's worth, the game lasts about 45 minutes. So the fact that a game could build that kind of emotion in 45 minutes is really a feat.
It's a great game. I don't get really emotional over a lot of things most of the time, but Florence got me. God. Next up is Hylics. Hylics is an RPG made out of clay, another one of those, where you play as Wayne, and you must destroy Gibby, Tyrant King of the Moon. Its clay is different to Dujana. While Dujana was like found parts and very understandable, Hylics is old style. It's weird and sort of shifty, and it looks like minced meat built up the houses, and characters sort of warble around. Most of the dialogue is procedurally generated nonsense poems, and you just sort of collect friends and go on a quest. And the funny fact is, the combat is great. It's really good RPG combat, like enough to keep me invested, which is hard because I usually don't get into RPG combat, but it feels meaty enough and the spells are interesting enough that you can create some battle strategies and push through. It's an extraordinarily pretty game, and it's not that long, and it's cheap on Steam. So if you're interested in something to play over like a weekend, you can't really go too badly with Hylics. And finally, it's Lethal League Blaze, which is the weirdest fighting game ever. It's a game about hitting a ball at very high speeds in a sort of Pong-style display until it's moving so fast that it slams into your opponent and kills them. There is a surprising skill ceiling to it. It has amazing music and really good art design that brings to mind a very large Jet Set Radio influence. So if that interests you at all, like, play that. I know that's a phrase I've been saying over and over, but it's pretty much the fact with any of these. If any of these interest you, I can vouch for their quality. They're all really good. And that finishes my game section, and we're on to the sort of final stretch of some music I liked this year. Again, I'm going to reiterate what I said at the start. I don't listen to enough music to feel like I'm actually an authority on it at all, and I know what I'm talking about. I played enough games that I feel like I at least can sort of know what's good and bad. But with music, man, who knows? This is just my taste at the moment. So the first album I liked this year was Future Me Hates Me by the Beths. Beths is like Bethany, Beths. It is a pop rock? A pop rock album? Again, like, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but the hooks, the sort of actual melodic hooks are really good. It's very catchy, and it's hard-hitting and powerful, while also the lyrics are quite introspective and actually thought out instead of just being dreck. It's good. The music's good. It's guitar music. Sometimes fast guitar music. Sometimes a little bit sad guitar music. So if you like pop rock guitars, sure. The next one is Hell is Real by Black Dresses. This album made me deaf. I can't hear anymore out of any of my ears. It's very loud. It's a very loud, bashing album. It has a lot of anger and sort of pent-up feelings put into it. And it's raw. You can feel how much emotion was put into it. It explodes outwards in the heaviest synthesizers and drums and just warbling, screaming vocals. It's a pretty short EP, but it moves through different ideas so quickly and evolves upon itself constantly that it never gets stale. It's fantastic. Maybe not one to listen to in public or with good headphones, because you'll get tinnitus in both ears and maybe like your eye. I didn't even know it was possible, but I'm sure we could manage. Lastly is Timeless by Dylan Canner. No one's really bought this, but it's some quiet music. It's on Bandcamp, but I don't know what I can say about it other than the lyrics are really beautiful. The lyrics are fantastic. It has a lot of very memorable moments in terms of melodies. It's just a really great little sort of quiet guitar-y album. Sorry. So if you want to listen to something like that, I don't think you can go wrong with Timeless. Now we're going to move on to Best Movie and slash TV of the year. I haven't watched much TV. I never do. So, movies, Clerks and Spirited Away. Firstly, Clerks. On repeat watchings, I can understand Clerks has a lot of problems. It has... None of the characters know what pausing in dialogue is. A lot of people are pretty clearly reading off a script, and the acting's pretty mediocre across the board, but for what it's worth, none of that can take my first viewing experience away from me. And I loved it. I love Clerks. I think the jokes are funny. I think it's interestingly written. I like how everybody on the cast is kind of a dickhead. And at the end, nothing's really happened. Like, you look at it and you're like, oh, they're just going to go back to the same thing they did tomorrow, probably. It's about one guy having a bad day and complaining about it and then getting accosted for complaining about it. But you know he's going to complain in future about the same amount. It's mundane and silly, but it's also sort of genuine in that sense. As genuine as something with bad acting and a very ungenuine script can be. So just, I don't know. It's shot in black and white. It's hopefully not that hard to come by now, considering it's a little older. So, if you're interested in a comedy it's a bit raunchy, but if you're interested in that, go for it. Spirited Away is next. That's the best animated movie ever made. No expenses were spared. Every background is a painting I would hang on my wall. Every character animation is so beautifully detailed and on model. It's consistently jaw-dropping. It's a movie I had to watch like 3 or 4 times before I really got it. And the pacing is not the best, but it's got so many unique and memorable moments that it's worth watching it just for a series of those. I think trying to consider it one overarching plot actually weakens the movie because it's not really good watching it that way, but whichever way makes you happier when you watch it. It's a movie I view as it's a series of relatable childhood experiences put through the guise of a fantastical world, but then again, I could be entirely wrong. I know there's official things the director has said, but my personal stance is once you've put art out in the world, the original artist saying it means nothing at all. So I'm not going to go with their theory on what their work actually means, because I think my meaning is just as valuable. That covers Best Movie and TV of the Year. And Best Soundtrack of the Year. This goes to a game, because I, again, don't watch enough movie or TV to feel like I know what I'm talking about. Legendary Gary, this was the game I was given a code for, although I'm not sponsored to say anything about it, or paid. Legendary Gary's soundtrack is very, very good. It's made by, I think, XX underscore sick underscore XX, I think, but I can't remember exactly. It feels kind of like The Cure, and a little bit like The Police, and a lot like its own thing. It's, I don't know, it's sort of synthy pop, and it's quite dissonant from what's going on with the rest of the game, in terms of, like, it's a fantasy setting, but all the battles have this synth pop, but it works super well in creating an interesting mood and atmosphere and sort of a vibe, and I think it really increases the game and makes it much more memorable. I can remember a lot of fights for their music, more so than I do for the actual fights, although the art is very, very nice. I didn't mention it before, but Legendary Gary's art is very reminiscent of indie comics, sort of underground comics, and it looks beautiful. It's all hand-drawn. And then it finishes up Best Soundtrack of the Year. Then my final section, Best Podcasts, because I do actually listen to a decent amount of podcasts, none of which are the educational or enriching type, so. Firstly, we've got My Brother and Me, which was my entry point into this sort of universe created by the McElroy brothers, which is Justin McElroy, Travis McElroy, and Griffin McElroy. And don't worry, if you listen to this podcast, it did take me like 15 episodes to be able to tell Justin and Travis's voice apart. You're not alone.
It's a show in which three brothers answer Yahoo Asked questions and user submitted questions and just go off and do funny little bits. It's entertaining and kind of homely and cozy in a way I can't describe. Like, listening to it, it's never gonna be. It's something that feels like a constant. And I don't know quite how I mean that, but I mean it in some way. My brother and me is homely and cozy and a nice thing to know you can go back to at any point during the week. There's a new episode every week, so it's not like you're missing out. And it's not too much of an obligation to keep up, because every episode's standalone, so it's lovely. Next one is the podcast that Demi Lardner and Tom Walker do. I don't think I can say the name of it on YouTube, and I don't really want to. It's a very good podcast in which they look at very strange stuff from the internet and have other comedians on, and generally just fuck around. It's excellent. It's fun to listen to. It's consistently a highlight of my week. Tuesdays is the day when this podcast comes out, and I'll set aside some time to listen to it, or at least some point in the next couple of days, because I love it. I just adore listening to them chat and have fun together. It's a fantastic podcast, and they're both very funny, and all the guests they bring on are very funny as well, so it's never unfunny, I guess. I said funny a lot in that sentence, and I apologize for it. That brings us to the very final thing on my list, entirely. Best podcast, last one. Clueless Critics. This is a podcast. This one's kind of a cheat, because it's a podcast I do with some friends of mine. It's on SoundCloud and iTunes, actually. Surprisingly, I don't know how he managed to get it up there. We review movies. There's like 3 episodes of it, and we've been doing it for like a year, so don't expect frequent uploads. But I mean, I'm happy with it. I like being a part of it. So if you want to listen to me ramble about movies, which I have said here I have no idea about, just feel free to watch that or listen to that. It's alright. I feel like the episodes we've got out are pretty decently edited and not too awful to listen to, so I mean, yeah, give it a shot. That brings me to the end of my whole list. Thank you for sitting through with me for like 42 minutes now. That's pretty long if I don't edit this down. I guess you'll be able to tell now. Thank you for sitting through it and listening to me ramble about things I like and things I hope I like when they happen to be in my hands. It's been a good year for entertainment, I guess. I don't know. I've enjoyed myself. I've enjoyed playing games and watching movies. I tend to. And hopefully I'll have a good another year of it, and I hope you do too. So I probably won't upload anything for another year, because I don't. But I mean, if I do, I'll see you then. Happy New Year.